Yeah.
We gotta go for it every time. All right, so we're gonna talk about the Immortal. Wow. So first off, before I give my thoughts, Megan, how did you find out about this game? When did you play it? What was your experience of getting your hands on it?
I played it a while ago. I don't remember exactly.
It wasn't on Switch, was it?
No.
Okay, because I just want to say, I actually, as much as we were like getting wrecked by like the new stuff that happened like every new room, I actually really enjoyed this game. I think it's a lot of fun. Um, it definitely it's definitely a trial and error game. There's a lot of stuff that's going to get you as you're going to the different areas, like the shadows. Like it doesn't tell you too much. Like you kind of have to figure out how to do the slashing on your own. But the thing is, even when you're losing, you still feel like you're making progress, and that's the thing I want to separate it from Rygar from a little bit, because we kept running around and dying, and it barely felt like we were making any step forward because we kept getting turned around by being told we didn't have the item for a particular part. But this, as we were moving, again we were getting our ass whooped, but like we were learning each time, and that last step before we decided to call it was the first we have ever gotten. We were hitting, we saw the torches there that need to get lit. Unfortunately, I didn't notice that shadow on the ground that sent me to my doom, and that's an unfortunate thing. And I just want to point out, for the purposes of this episode, we did not use suspend points, but I would actually, if you're going to play this game yourself, highly recommend doing so, because that could help you mitigate a lot of like unnecessary deaths and restarts and whatnot once you feel like you start learning. And you have 4 suspend point slots, so that's actually a good spot to do that. But no, I was actually having a lot of fun with this game. Tell me your thoughts.
I really like this game. I like the music. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really awesome.
Yeah,
I really like the fact that you're playing as a wizard, exploring, dungeons and the labyrinth, and I think the atmosphere is very cool.
mm-hmm.
I think the enemies are cool. I think overall it's just a really solid game. I would say that maybe it's a little repetitive at times,
Sure.
but I think overall it has a lot of um, positive things about it.
I would say so. And like like was pointed out earlier, this was ported from Apple too. So, and I felt that like from the minute I started this game, it felt like a very early PC game, like a very early PC adventure type game. So I'm
Mhm.
actually very impressed that it translated pretty well to the NES. I think again I was using the actual NES controller, which I always do for these episodes to give it the the feeling of how it was if you were playing it back in the day. But I almost how do I put this? I feel like with an Apple computer, you probably had more options. Maybe you had like your keys or you had the mouse to like guide where you're going. I almost feel like that'd be better for like something like this, because like with just the D-pad, it was a little difficult to control. I would try this on my own using like a control stick and see if that controlled the wizard any better, because that my only complaint about it was it felt fine to control most of the time, but there's one of those few times where we were coming right out of the door and we inadvertently walked directly into the fire and died, and then we lost that way, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's mostly fine, the controls, but there are those just moments where it just kind of like you do something that you didn't mean to, and because of all the stuff that is flying your way, like the fire and the knives and those things that are trying to drop you down the pit, it does help to have your controls be a little bit steady. So if this game interests you, I'll just put that as a note that you should try with the control with your pro controller or anything else as a stick. See if that works out better for you as far as controls. But that was just my experience. Actually, question, Megan, what controller are you using for? What were you using for to play Immortal?
I'm just playing handheld right now.
Or you're playing handle, but you had the stick handy, right?
The stick?
Yeah,
You mean?
yeah, yeah. Well, you were playing handle using the left Joy-Con, right?
Yeah, I was also using the directionals, or I don't know what the word is, but the arrows.
Directional buttons. Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
What felt
and
okay? I was just wondering which one felt more comfortable to you between the two you're using as far as this
I
game.
feel like the arrows were actually a little bit
Oh yeah.
easier to use. Yeah.
Okay, so if the arrows were a little bit easier to use, then that's probably just the thing of the game. And again, it worked. It worked most of the time. It was just that those instances that I was like, "Ooh, we just rocking directly into that fire. Yikes!" But otherwise,
Yeah.
but otherwise, it was fine. Um, we did have to figure out those goblin fights a little bit because we were just doing stabbing and dodging, and then we realized, oh, you can do sweeping slash, and you can do more dynamic dodging. Doesn't really tell you that, but you kind of play around with the buttons because we were dying way too much. It's like this can't be it. There has to be a way to defeat these goblins without just getting murdered. So I was like, let me just try a few more things and see what we can figure out here. And sure enough, we were able to do that. You are gifted a lot of items, I noticed, and that's another thing I'd be interested in playing a little more of this game to like see where those lead to. Honestly, I think it's great that a game like this exists on Switch because this is like a perfect game where you could just kind of like sit back while you're just, I don't know, maybe have something else nearby and just kind of like relax and like go through the levels. I think that'd be a lot of fun to do it that way. In fact, I would even venture that a game like this today fits better on handheld. I think it's great that this game is finally on a handheld system. I feel like you could, of course, play this on console because, of course, that's what it was originally designed for. It was an Apple game and it was an NES game. But a game like this, like, almost feels at home, like to be playing handheld. Like it's like a little perfect little pocket adventure that you can kind of like sink your teeth into little by little, doing these kind of mini quests. And we saw that demo before we got started, and there was so much happening in that. There's like the rowing through the water. There was a dragon part that just like instantly burned you. So this game's got some cool stuff. Like the dungeon setting is pretty cool. I like the whole the wizard with the knife and his magic stuff, lighting the torches. There's a lot of cool stuff in this game. So I definitely enjoy it. And it's trial and error, but like at least you feel like at least you feel like you're progressing. It's not like Rygar where it says if you really want to even touch that game, you need a guide. This game you could use a guide if you want to streamline your process a little bit, but honestly, from our experience, as you just keep playing, you'll figure out a lot of this stuff. It's not too dense, at least as far as we saw. That doesn't mean it can't get dense later, and if it does, then that's a different story. But from what we played, it seems pretty straightforward. You just go around the dungeons and just make sure you're keeping your eyes on what's around you, and you'll eventually progress. And if you really like, there's two ways to like progress. We didn't get past level 1 because game's kind of hard, but but you can if to make it a little easier, you can use suspend points, and this game does a certificate system. You don't need to use that because again, suspend points. But if you're just trying to like get back to a certain level, you can find those certificates online. Like when I was looking up the certificates on my phone while Megan was doing her return, I found the certificates to get all the way to level 6 it was. So if you want to just do that, you can totally do that too. It's an option. Obviously, probably the best way to do it was just like, actually play the game like through. It's an adventure game through and through. Like not action adventure, not like vision novel. It's an adventure game for sure in a way that not a lot of games do as much these days. And I think that's important. I think, how do I say this? There's a lot of people who are asking for a lot of specific NES games that haven't come on the Nintendo Switch yet. So a lot of games that they haven't heard about come on instead. And they instead of trying them out, they're just like, oh, I just want this instead. But the good thing about this series is that you get to try out these games that otherwise I probably would have never touched. And I think Immortal was a pleasant surprise. So I'm happy that I gave it the chance. I think it does hold up. That's my take on it. For a game that's on the NES, that's like, if it's still fun to play today, then as far as I'm concerned, it holds up. So in that regard, I enjoyed it. How do you feel?
I completely agree. I think one of the most important things is that what you were talking about progressing.
Mm-hmm.
The more that we played it and the longer we took our time and just kind of figured out the mechanics of the game, the more we progressed because at the end we had gone to a room where we hadn't even gotten to previously.
Yep.
And I think that that's probably one of the most exciting aspects of just games in general, of progressing in the game and, doing a trial and error at the beginning and then, picking it up and really being able to sink your teeth into it and get into it. And so I think that this definitely holds up. I really like it. Really great.
Yeah, I'm glad we're in agreement. Yeah. It's a 100%. It's 100% a fun game. You got to switch to Nintendo Switch Online. Give this game a try. I think you might be pleasantly surprised by how much you end up enjoying it yourself. Cause that was a nice pleasant surprise for me. It might be a pleasant surprise for you. And so that's gonna be